This Fleet Equipment Unscripted interview is presented by Hendrickson, a leading manufacturer of heavy-duty suspension systems and components to the global commercial transportation industry. Visit hendrickson-intl.com to learn more.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jason Morgan, editor of Fleet Equipment, and welcome to Fleet Equipment Unscripted. Very special guest today. Regular readers of Fleet Equipment would know Jake Shell, Associate Product Manager for Mitchell 1's Commercial Vehicle Group. Bonus points if you remember Jake from the pages of Fleet Service Technology, but Jake is one of our regular service content contributors, and it's great to catch up with you today, Jake.
Hi, Jason. Good to be here.
So we're doing something a little different here. Since you are a regular contributor and you've written a lot of great stories for us, I thought we'd go back into the archives, take a look at some of your greatest hits, and I have some follow-up questions for you here. So we'll get started. I'm going to name one of the first greatest hits, Jake Shell on Fleet Equipment. Story entitled Playing Favorites. Is your favorite shop task really the best approach for the repair? I love this one because we all get into our biases and our likes and all that. So my follow-up question is, we all get into these ruts, right? And we all lean too heavily on our assumptions that oftentimes a lot of the service information and data can disprove. What do you recommend to shops or fleets to create a culture of focusing on that data rather than just relying on what they've always done?
So one of the things I found that would be helpful in that respect would be to stay abreast of the latest service information. Check the periodicals that are coming out, things that are coming through the magazines, checking the service information itself to make sure that the repairs that are being done are the latest and greatest. And sometimes, we run into those things where somebody will find out a better way of doing something, and there's ways to share those in the community, online communities, and everything else, and those all filter down among the shops, all the technicians out there, and able to get those done. Because for sure, we do get into these areas where we find a job that we like to do, and in doing that job, we see that, if we're working flat rate or something like that, like, oh, this fixed it the last time, it fixed it the times before that, I'm always going to do this just straight off. And then we'll run into those times where that's not the problem. And it's then when we get into trouble, because then you got to go and start from square one. It's like, okay, now I got to revert back to the very beginning of my basic diagnostics and troubleshooting skills to go find the actual problem that's there, rather than just throwing that dart that we've been throwing against the wall for the whole time. And it just keeps us from getting in trouble, because sometimes these repairs can be rather expensive and time-consuming, and the last thing we wanted to do is have to go back and fix things that really didn't need to be fixed in the first place.
Right. Well, and to your point, it might be fair that it takes time and effort to stay on top of those new practices, right? And I know things are moving quickly for everybody. I know there's a lot of work to get done, and you want to just be able to say, it's just, we can do it the way we've always done it. But creating an environment where you are valuing that time that people take to do the right troubleshooting, doing the right diagnostics. I mean, it goes a long way. It goes a long way.
It goes a long way. And it also, increases your value as a technician too, when you are taking the time to learn these new skills and update existing skills to stay on top of the field. That improves your value for the shop and for the customer and for your own personal well-being, as far as getting a job done right the first time. And technicians take a lot of pride in not necessarily making money, is actually fixing vehicles and fixing them right to where they don't have comebacks and those sorts of problems. It's important, and the only way you can do those is you can be at that point in this field is to stay on top of what's going on.
Right. No, perfect. And you are definitely a content creator, because you segued great into my next question. Another great story was titled "As Trucks Grow More Complex, the Basic Principles of Diagnostics Still Apply." And boy, are we staring down the barrel of a lot of change, right? We got ADAS, we got electrification, we got new diesel systems coming here in a couple years. It's a lot. It's a lot for me, and all I do is write about it. I don't even have to fix the trucks. I just have to write about it. It's hard for me to keep
Right.
a handle on it, right? So, in working and developing the shop software and working with technicians on your end, ADAS, electrification, diesel technology evolving, what do you recommend for shops and technicians staying on top of it in terms of investing in continuing education or even tools and equipment? How do you help them navigate these waters?
Exactly. So the best place to start is with the media publications to find out, what's new, what's coming along, and to be into that, and go into your service information and look and see what's there. Stay on top of it, and then look, like you said, your community colleges and things like that will offer courses. There may be even OE classes that are offered to shops that they can go take. But staying on top of the information is key. But going back there to the very beginning is maintaining those foundational skills that we have. A circuit is always going to be a circuit. It has a short to power, short to ground, open. It doesn't matter how complex the circuits get. The basics of diagnostics for those circuits will always remain the same, at least as long as electricity works as we know it today. And the same thing goes for any other kind of mechanical diagnosis and repair. Is we can very easily get into the weeds on the latest and greatest technologies and completely forget the basic skills that that we've learned from the beginning. It's like listen to the driver, the user of the vehicle, as to what's wrong. Most of our diagnosis takes place in that communication, as to understanding the when, where, and how things happen on the vehicle that's causing the complaint in the first place, and then going in and trying to duplicate those concerns, and then knowing how to zero in on them at those foundational levels. It's absolutely key to fixing these things right the first time, and to get them done in a rapid way. We get into that position where we're just diving in, and hitting the complicated pieces first, and then find out you had a connector was loose, or a pin was loose into the connector, or something like that, or or who knows? Any of those things could ultimately be the problems.
Right.
And we need to just focus on those basics to start with. That's where it all happens at.
For sure. I appreciate the plug for the industry publications too. And I mean, you do a better job of plugging fleet equipment than I have been. So thank you for that. I will also say that the Mitchell One site, the Truck Series section has a lot of great info too. I will link for you, since you are awesome at plugging fleet equipment. Appreciate that.
All right.
A different topic for us.
It's true though.
I know. Well, that's why we try to stay on top of it. There are a lot of moving parts. One of my favorite stories that you did for us, a little different for what we usually do on the fleet equipment side of things with the truck focus, but talking about shop safety. And one of the stories you brought to us was the importance of hearing protection in your shop. Really great safety focused story for technicians, for shop managers, for fleets. A lot of great personal insight there too. All these stories I'll be linking to in this post, but I really like this one. So I just kind of wanted to touch base with you. I know the story really focused on hearing protection and the safety there, but in your experience, what other shortcuts just commonly happen on the shop that maybe people don't think about, or just kind of do as second nature, that they should really slow down and make sure they're doing the safe procedures to keep everyone in the shop safe and protected?
Well, one of the phrases I heard early on in my career, this is back in the late 70s when I first started in this business, is somebody said to me, "Speed kills." So whenever you're in a hurry trying to take shortcuts of any way, because that's when you get hurt.
Man.
And it's probably one of the key things that any technician or anybody can remember, is when you get in a rush and you forget to do things, that's when you end up getting hurt. I started in this industry at a time when hearing and eye protection were almost an afterthought. if you were underneath something and there was junk falling all over, you might put on some safety glasses, or, if you were doing something where the noise was so bad that it made your head shake, you'd put in some earplugs. But other than that, the safety precautions were just non-existent. And as a result, I have to wear hearing aids today. I have multiple holes in my eyes that have resulted from scars of things being in them. So wearing these safety things are important to protect yourself, because you don't realize what you have until you've lost it. And not being able to hear, higher pitched voices, your wife or little kids, those things are you realize how much you treasured them when you no longer can hear them.
Right.
And with your eyes, the same thing. You lose your vision, and these are things that we have, and we can lose them really quickly without even noticing it. And the same thing goes for the rest of all kinds of shop equipment. Throwing a jack around, trying to move things around without taking the proper steps to secure it. It just takes an instant, and you're severely injured or killed in some cases. And it's just things that we have to be aware of. Like I said, like they told me, speed kills.
Right.
And
It's
just super important to stay on top of the safety precautions.
Right. No, I know. I mean, even on the personal note, on my side of the family, I've got a family member who is in the automotive repair, and had an issue with his back, and just was working in the shop, and do something a way you think you can do it, and then, man, I mean, who doesn't sympathize with just constant back issues, right? I mean, it happens.
For sure.
It happens.
For
So
sure.
definitely doing things the right way is important. And I mean, I love, again, going back to it, and I think one of the things we've talked about here the whole time, just slowing down a little bit, or taking the time to do things properly, right? Everyone's in a rush. Everyone's kind of starting a lot with the data of calculating time in the shop and time out of shop and throughput and downtime, but not at the risk of safety or doing a job that isn't the best you can do.
Yeah, we want to do the best we can and do it safely. And it's great to be able to get things done quickly, and make that extra money for yourself and for the shop, and take pride in getting things done quickly. But at the same time, when we mess up or we jump to conclusions in diagnosis, then we end up spending 2 or 3 times the amount of time that we would have spent originally if we would have taken the time to say, okay, let me go through these steps. And, and I know that some of the steps are very long and time consuming, but, the procedural information is designed to come to a resolution of the problem.
Right.
So it has to take into consideration all the pieces, and you can you can move through things rather quickly a lot of the times when steps are correct, and it comes with experience. But even then, you get in a rush, all of a sudden it's like, now I got to go back and try and figure out what happened. And sometimes, particularly when it comes to electrical type work, in your rush to plug and unplug things, and it's got to be the control module, and you unplug it and you slap a new control module on it and you plug it back in and you're good to go and everything works, only to find out later that you had a loose or corroded pin on the connector side, the harness side of the wire, that in 3 weeks is just as bad as the first one, and then now you got it coming back again with the same problem. That's really common. The low voltages and everything go into these control modules, and the amount of abuse that connectors and wire harnesses take during operation, cause all kinds of problems. We just have to focus on making sure those are right, rather than just jump into those big pieces that we think are causing the problem.
Right. Well, and to that point, the number of computers on the truck are growing. The number of connections are growing as components get more intelligent. You're going to be plugging more things in, and electrical architecture becomes more complex. There's just going to be more opportunity to miss those really basic things because you were focused on the assumption or the complexity of it all.
Absolutely.
Jake.
Yep. Like they say, the road is one step at a time, right?
Yeah, that's right. Or 1 mile in the trucking world, right? Jake, always a pleasure catching up. I really appreciate everything you do for fleet equipment. I know you have more coming, and I'm sure we'll connect soon to talk about more greatest hits.
All right, Jason. Thanks a lot. It's always fun to do these.